Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Winter, and this is my Legacy of the Void basic hotkey setup guide. We're going to talk about the basics of hotkeys, what they're used for, some tips and tricks, stuff like that, little things you got to watch out for. A lot of these I've covered before in previous expansions, especially Heart of the Swarm. I have a much longer video. This is going to be the very basics. If you are Platinum, Diamond, Masters, you're probably not going to learn very much from this, but this is for newer players who might not realize how everything quite works. We're going to talk about army hotkeys, we're going to talk about production hotkeys, and just basic control. We're going to keep it short. I'm going to try to keep this video under 10 minutes. Who knows how long it's going to end up. It applies to all races, because a lot of these things apply to all the races, not just specific situations for Terran or Zerg or Protoss, though they do have individual things. Okay, with that, let's get into it. I'm going to talk about custom hotkeys. You might have heard about Grid, or the Core, or other sets of hotkeys. I'm going to tell you right now, I use a slightly modified version of default hotkeys. For this video, we're going to assume you have default Starcraft hotkeys. And that's what we have set up. So that means you got attack, move, and all of that. First off, I'm going to talk about a basic hotkey scheme. I use this for all three races. On one, now, you got to kind of decide. The big one is where you want to put your bases and where you want to put your army. The way you're hotkeying really isn't affected by this. The actual numbers don't matter, but how you're divvying everything up is important. What I like to do is I like to put my main bases on 4. Usually all of them. I'll have all the bases connected. I'll use camera locations to distinguish. But 4, and then you can use Control 4. And then Shift 4 every time you want to add more into the control group. You see me hitting Shift there. It allows you to add things to a control group. It's important to distinguish between the Shift and Control hotkeys. Those are also big ones as well. I'm actually going to talk about that first. The basic hotkey is you select something, Control 1, and I've added to this hotkey. And if I want to select all of a certain unit, if you hold Control and you click on a certain type of unit, it will only select that type of unit. So that's different than necessarily putting them in control groups. Like now I can just put the queens in Control 2, for example. If you want to add to a control group any units or any buildings, Shift and then hit that control group. Shift 2 right there. And now you have everything added in, you see. Now this was added with Legacy of the Void. I personally have not trained myself to use it, but I hope this helps you guys out maybe a little bit. You can actually steal from one control group and add to another. You can remove units effectively from one control group and add to a different one with the Alt key. So we're going to have this army, say, over here, Control 1, this Control 2. Say I want to add these queens to the second hotkey. I'm actually going to select them and hit Alt 2. And notice how the control groups changed on the other side. It will immediately take them off of that hotkey and switch them to the first hotkey. So now they've been removed effectively from this hotkey. Another way to do it is shift click. You can shift click units out and then re-hotkey with Control 1. But we're getting a little bit fancy here. Those are just the little tricks in the beginning. Alright, now the way I hotkey my units and bases. Very simple. And I do recommend at least something, a variation of this style at least, for every race. You got your bases on 4. I like to put my main ground army on 1. So in this case, I'd have like Lurkers and Ravagers, stuff like that. Or I'd have my Bio-Terran, and I'd have my Medivacs. I might have my Liberators. Or if I'm a Protoss player, I have my Stalkers, my Sentries, usually my Gateway units and Immortals and stuff like that. So you have your units that don't require a major amount of spell casting, like now what I'm going to talk about is spellcasting priority. This is also a reason for hotkeying in a certain way. Because certain units have priority over other units. When I just select this army, we're going to only select the Protoss units. We're going to hotkey this on Control 1, just for sake of argument. Now hotkey over here. And now you see in the command card, the Mothership Core comes up first. So if you have the Select All Army hotkey used, then you're not going to be able to easily cast Force Fields, or Guardian Shield, or blink your Stalkers, or anything like that, because you have it all on one hotkey. So now this is especially for Protoss players. The Mothership Core gets its own hotkey. I usually set it on 2. I set it on a separate hotkey as soon as I get it. It makes it a lot easier, and because it takes priority over things like sentries, you don't get caught in a situation where you're not able to cast the spells you need. On the other side, for Terran, it's not as hard and fast of a rule, but usually you got your standard bio units. This could be Hellions and tanks. This could be anything that doesn't require, like, big micromanagement. Things like ghosts usually go on a specialty hotkey, like 2 or 3. Something like that. Another one, I use 1, 2, and 3 for my army. Like, for example, as a Zerg player, I'll have my Queens on 2. I'll make sure I have my Ravagers on 1. Because Queens actually take priority over Ravagers. If I hit this hotkey here and there are Queens, it's going to make it really hard to fire those Ravager shots. And especially confusing because the hotkey for Spawn Creep Tumor is the same as the hotkey for Corrosive Bile. So I try to make sure especially to have those units split up. As for my third hotkey, it's usually for flying units or counterattacks or drops or something like this. So maybe I'll put my Liberators on it. If I had Phoenixes, I'd put them on it, or Mutas. It doesn't really matter. And then 4 is your bases. 5 is usually my production. Whether it's Terran or Protoss. Zerg, your production is already your hatcheries, so you don't need that. I don't use Queen hotkeys because I use camera locations for inject, but that's an entirely different concept. But the same thing applies here. There's a couple different schools of thought, especially for Terran. This is mostly for Terran here, but I like to have all my production on the 5 hotkey. And what I do is use tab. I use tab to cycle through. So if I want to make a couple Marines, there you go. Press tab, and it brings you to the next type. Maybe I'll make some Hellions or some tanks, and then I'll tab again, get a medevac. Some players will put it on 5, 6, 7, or 1, 2, 3, or they'll split it up. This is personal choice, but because I have tiny hands, I like to consolidate the hotkeys as much as possible. Now, past this, and also for Zerg, I'll just have this for another. We're gonna talk a little bit extra. Also, I'm gonna talk about Protoss. I usually put my Robo and my Stargate unit. These buildings can't warp in units. So I kind of treat that production like I would as Terran. It's very similar in the concept. As for Warp Gate, the default Warp Gate hotkey to automatically select your Warp Gates is W. Is W for Protoss. So you hit that and then you can actually warp in. So I don't actually have my Gateways hotkeyed. I use the Warp Gate hotkey, which I find to be very convenient for warping as Protoss. Now past that, we're getting into the point where it's really specialty units. I'll have units like Vipers, or a single Oracle, or Observer, or a Nidus Network or something. I'll slap those on 6, 7, 8 once you get deeper into the game. Just that way, like something you're not going to use every 10 seconds, but something you're going to use once a minute is what I just put on the ending hotkeys. Sometimes I don't have them hotkeyed at all, but those are the big things there. Just the basic concepts. On 1, you got your stock army. You got the meat of your army. You got your gateway units. You got your bio. You got your Lings and Banelings, your Roaches, your Ravagers. On 2, you got your specialty units, your Mothership Cores, your Drops, your Liberators, your Queens. On 3, you got your flying units or your Spellcasters, like High Templar, like Ghosts, like Infestors, like Vipers. And then from there, it's production on 4 with bases. And past that, you know what? I'm actually going to put a graphic on the screen. Let's just do that. I should have put this at the beginning, but we'll put it in there as well. We're doing it live. That's how I do everything, guys. Hopefully you don't mind. But there you go. That's how I split it up. Once again, 1 main army, 2 specialty casters, Mothership Core, Queens, Drops, stuff like that. 3 is spellcasters, 4 is bases, 5 is production, 6 and on are just specialty units that you use every once in a while. Now remember, don't be caught using that select all army hotkey and not being able to cast your spells. Spells are incredibly important in StarCraft, and if you can master controlling 2 separate types of units simultaneously, if you can cast EMP and do a drop simultaneously, you're going to win a lot more games than learning out how better to 1A your way across the map in the long run. So hopefully this hotkey guide helped you guys out a little bit. I did not go much into the details of specific situations or specific units, but hopefully this gives you a little bit of a baseline, at least to work with, and hopefully it helped out at least a little bit. Thank you guys for watching. Good luck, have fun, and happy StarCraft, and I'll see you next time.